And most organizations haven't developed an effective literacy program for the entire staff. And when I say entire staff, I'm not talking just about the folks in the executive suite and the directors and the clinicians. I'm also talking about the person at the receptionist desk. I'm talking about the person in the cafeteria. I'm talking about the maintenance, professionals there. Now, anyone that is operating to help, responsible for helping to run the operations of the organization should have gotten some sort of exposure and education around what AI is and what AI isn't, and how the organization plans to leverage AI in its day-to-day operations.
Welcome to Podcast Wise, Perspectives, Healthcare and Technology. As healthcare organizations rush to adopt artificial intelligence, C-suite leaders are walking a tightrope between rapid digital innovation and unprecedented enterprise risk. From sophisticated deepfake threats and voice cloning exploits to algorithmic bias and broken patient consent frameworks, scaling AI safely requires far more than just vendor promises. Today we are joined by Christopher Kunney, Managing Partner of IOTECH Consulting, CTO of Ask Me Your MD, and author of Diagnosing Distrust. With over 25 years at the intersection of health IT, executive strategy, and clinical delivery, Christopher breaks down what it takes to govern AI from the inside out, from mandatory staff literacy to his proprietary HealthTechquity framework. Whether you're a CISO, CTO, or healthcare executive navigating the future of care delivery, this conversation offers an indispensable blueprint for purposeful digital transformation. Let's dive in. Please welcome Christopher Kunney. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Podcast Wise for more perspectives on healthcare and technology.
Hey, Christopher, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm doing great. All right, so I'm going to jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you've worn so many hats: CTO,
Yes.
strategist, author, podcast host, and so on, right?
Yes.
But if you had to pitch the ultimate vision of a perfectly digitized, equitable healthcare system to a room of skeptical hospital CEOs in just 60 seconds, what would be your core thesis?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I think fundamentally it comes down to having the ability to provide care to everyone from every background, um, with every background equitably. Everyone should be receiving the same quality and access to care, no matter their background, their race, their ethnicity, their religion, their, sexual orientation, ability to pay. Everyone should be able to have access to quality healthcare. Healthcare should be a right, not a convenience, or not for the wealthy, just for the wealthy of those who are insured. And so I imagine a system that supports an environment that's able to provide the quality of high quality care for everyone in that community.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, AI is being positioned as the solution to nearly every challenge in
Yeah.
healthcare.
Yes.
But with
Yeah.
great data comes great responsibility,
Mhm.
just like Spider-Man, right?
Yes, it is.
In your view, has the industry excitement about AI outpaced its preparedness to protect the patient data that powers it?
Wow, another good question. I think the short answer is yes. I think the industry, and first of all, I would say I'm excited that the industry is excited.
Mhm.
When you think about just 15, 20 years ago, when we were actively trying to roll out and adopt electronic health record systems, we ran against a lot of skepticism and a lot of challenges, in the industry wanting to adopt the digitalization of patient information. And in some cases, you had clinicians literally leave the industry because they were unwilling to adopt technology.
Wow.
Fast forward, 20 years now, there's almost an insatiable appetite now for the use of technology. And now AI being kind of that next holy grail. We see a tremendous amount of excitement and interest, and probably some skepticism but not nearly to the degree that we experienced 20 years ago when we were trying to get organizations to adopt electronic health record systems. So, one, I'm enthused and excited about that, but also recognizing that we are kind of building the plane and flying it at the same time when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
That is still very much in its infancy in its adoption in healthcare, and how we're ultimately going to be able to leverage it to provide equitable healthcare as well. And you made a very important point. The concept of AI is a technology, a tool, and under that umbrella, AI is a number of different types of AI as
Hmm.
well too. And ultimately, it all depends on how it leverages data that it's digesting in order to provide quality data, quality inputs, quality outcomes. And if the data isn't curated and governed in an appropriate way, then the AI can actually ex- um, could potentially cause more
More harm.
problems than help. Yeah, it
Yes.
could continue to perpetuate biases and issues. It could create hallucinations that might cause harm. It may, in some cases, again, provide inaccurate information to clinicians and to individuals who are leveraging it. So it all starts at the end with the data, and lay as you start. So as you start going down this journey around the use of AI, you need to start with asking yourselves, what data is it going to digest? Have we curated that data? Do we have a governance structure around that data to ensure the quality and accuracy and the efficacy of that data? And then what tools and processes are we going to have in place to measure ourselves and hold ourselves accountable if we allow AI to be a part of our equation, to ensure that it doesn't do more harm than
Hmm.
the good that we hope it will provide.
Yeah. And like when you were talking about the skepticism when the electronic health records started,
Uh-huh.
um, anecdotally, like I have a story where
Uh-huh.
when I went to the cardiologist
Sure.
a few years ago, just a few years ago, probably like
Hmm.
2020, 2021,
Right.
they were still using paper records.
Right.
So I was like, why?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
why? Like, I see like the rows
Yes.
and all of the folders, and I'm like, "Oh, you guys are still using paper?" I'm like, "Why?" Like,
Right. Well, and it's interesting you say that because now you measure your clinicians level and ability to some degree based on whether or not they are leveraging some of the latest and greatest technologies. I mean, to your point, you walked in there and felt a little concerned, a little skeptical
yeah.
about whether or not am I getting the best care possible if they're still going to paper records in order to manage my care. It's
Mhm,
not in a system that allows you to leverage AI and leverage other technologies to make sure it's gaining access to all the data available that might be needed to help diagnose my condition, and provide access to that information to others who could help support the delivery of care on my behalf as well too. So now we do hold clinicians accountable for leveraging technology as a part of the care delivery process.
mhm. Now, traditional cybersecurity was built around protecting data at rest and in transit. AI changes that equation entirely, and models are trained on patient data. Inference can re-identify individuals, and attack surfaces multiplies, and
Mhm.
so on.
Mhm.
How has AI fundamentally changed what protecting patient data actually means?
Wow. I think it's completely shifted the dynamic around what, and I feel, my heart goes out to the CISOs and cybersecurity professionals now in healthcare who have to now deal with the AI equation today. To your point, now you've got technology that literally has the ability to go in and identify vulnerabilities within your ecosystem. You have technology that can, in some cases, create digital twins or mimic, individuals such that, it could literally mimic a doctor and send communication out to certain individuals and request information about a patient, or in some cases, direct people to do certain procedures on a
Mhm.
patient through the use of these technologies as well too. So it completely changes the game, the social engineering aspects of it now, and the ability to enact insurance fraud. We see now these technologies literally calling patients and pretending that they're their insurance company, or pretending they're other individuals within the healthcare system and requesting certain information from that individual. And in some cases, it can even mimic people's voices. And so you might actually thinking you're actually talking to your doctor or your healthcare professional that you're familiar with. And it can do it in such a professional way that, it
It's
again, literally can
believable.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. It's
believable.
believable.
Yeah.
And so you've got a whole new game changer around social engineering when it comes to AI technology that has the ability to go in and identify potential vulnerabilities, technology that can actually interact with other AI technologies that might exploit vulnerabilities in that space as well too. So, um, you know, our healthcare leaders, our healthcare cybersecurity professionals have to really start thinking completely different about how they protect patient data now that we have AI as a part of the equation.
Yeah. Because it's also like when you were talking about how other AI can also fight
Yes,
internal AIs. It's like
right.
a fight of the AI bots. You're like,
That's
okay,
correct. That's
that,
right.
that's scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've got AI battling against AI, and we'll see which AI is more effective
Mhm.
in addressing potential vulnerabilities or identifying potential threat attempts, and that's literally a day-to-day ongoing process that healthcare security leaders have to deal with.
Yeah. Now, when patient signs a consent form at registration, they have
Uh-huh.
no idea their identifying data
Hmm.
may be used to train an AI model
That's
that
correct.
gets licensed to a third party.
Hmm.
Is the current informed consent framework equipped for the AI era? And if not, what needs to be changed?
Well, I think it's more than just the consent form. I think it's the need for the healthcare professional to adequately explain to the patient what they're signing and why they're signing it and what the implication is. Even with the current form today, when you go to the doctor, how many healthcare professionals, nurses, the first person at the front desk or whatever, sit down and walk through that document with you? I've never had anyone walk through the document
Me
with me.
neither. Me
Yeah,
neither. They're
exactly.
like,
Yeah,
Here's the packet,
that's right. Read it,
right?"
sign it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and out of just convenience, or just the fact that I don't want to go through all the legal jargon, or if you do read the legal jargon, you may not even understand what half of it means in some
Hmm.
cases. You just sign it and you trust that maybe my healthcare professional is going to do the right thing and protect my information. And but you don't know, to your point, where it's going, who's going to have access to it, is it truly de-identified information. So I think it starts with, we can't ever take the people and processes out of the equation, even when it comes to AI. And I do think that we need to do a better job in explaining some of the nuances associated with these new technologies and our legal um, the legal requirements that the healthcare professional has, and what we should be holding them accountable to as
Mm.
well before we sign that document. And you can simply say no. A lot of times when people see those documents and it asks you, do you give your consent? You think, if I don't give my consent, that I'm not going to get treatment, proper treatment in some cases as well too. So you just sign it hoping that will allow them to give me the right treatment, when in case it doesn't matter if you say yes or no, you're still obligated to provide quality care to the patient. And again, I think we, in many cases, give up a lot of our authority for our patient information just because we don't need to understand the nuances associated with it. No one's fully explained it to us, or we think if we say no, somehow that's going to limit our access to care.
Yeah, it's just like the terms and condition that you sign, that you click I accept
Hmm.
whenever, you I
When you get
infamously did
like
the
an app, for
Apple,
example.
yeah, for like the
Yeah.
apps or the when
Because a lot of
signing
times
on
when you
to
click that,
Apple.
yeah, exactly. Because a lot of times when you click that, accept those terms and conditions, if you say no, then the app doesn't let you download it, right? If you have
Right.
to accept the terms and conditions in order to use the app. And I think to some degree, we've been conditioned to think that that's how all things should work. And if I don't accept this, then they're not going to provide me the quality of care that I deserve.
Yeah, and also the fact that we as society or individuals or humans, we don't read the terms and conditions because
No.
they're so long.
Yes.
One, two, legal jargon. Nobody
Hmm.
understands what it
Right.
is unless you're a lawyer.
That's right.
It takes forever to read it. Even
Hmm.
if you want to read it, you're like,
Right.
it takes time,
Exactly.
understanding, and all that stuff. And even if it was the HIPAA consent form
Mhm.
that is maybe 3 paragraphs, people are like, "I don't understand this,"
That's right. Right. And to some degree, I think it's purposely done. I hate to say it, but that it isn't easy to read, so you just kind of gloss over it and you sign it. Why isn't it written in a way that you and I, who are not attorneys, could understand it and interpret it,
Right.
but it's not written that way in many cases, and so people, to your point, just gloss over it, or they just say, "Well, I'm gonna trust that this is protecting me in some way, so I'm going to accept it." When in cases you may be giving up a lot of your rights without knowing.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. We need
Hmm.
to figure out a way to change that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So we tend to think that data protection in terms of breaches and unauthorized access, but there is another dimension when AI models trained on historical biases data produce recommendations that harm certain
Hmm.
patients' population.
Yes.
Is that also a failure on data integrity? And how do we protect patients from what the data does, not just from who sees it?
Yeah, another great question. I think it's a combination of a few things. One, it's a combination of the fact that we do have inherent biases in how we deliver care to
Mhm,
patients historically. And so a lot of the data that AI is digesting is data that was actually created by human beings who delivered unequitable care.
mhm,
And so it is just taking the information that was already generated from years and years of inequitable care and using it and considering it as fact. So part of it's not AI's fault. It's the human beings who, for years, did not provide, again, equitable care to various populations that they serve.
mhm,
So yes, I do think that the tools, if not, if there isn't um, a very intentional decision to analyze data, to quantify any equitable insights from that data, and measure whether or not this data is somehow um, uh, perpetuating further biases, then we will continue to exasperate that, escalate that,
mhm,
and it will become kind of a part of fact because now we're assuming AI is doing it, so it must be fact. When in cases it may be creating hallucinations and and continue to perpetuate biases as well too. So, as we mentioned earlier, whether you are going down this AI journey or even if you're not using AI, we all should be asking ourselves, are we providing the best care possible? Are we providing equitable care? Does the data that we're collecting that we can review and analyze reflect that? And if it doesn't, we need to understand the root cause of that. Is that
mm,
a personal issue? Is that a process issue? Is that an individual bias issue? What was the root cause of why we are seeing systemic bias occur in the delivery of healthcare? and then we start to address how we fix it once we understand what those root causes are. And those root causes could be a number of different factors.
Yeah. Now, health systems are deploying AI tools from dozens of vendors, many
Hmm.
of which are training their models on patient data in ways that are buried in contract language. What questions should healthcare leaders be asking their AI vendors before they signed? And what red flags should immediately end the conversation?
Yeah, I think first of all, there needs to be a certain amount of transparency in the technology that they have. They need to be able to explain the logic that the technology is employing to analyze data. And so you should be asking your vendor partners to help you understand how is this AI how was this AI developed? What's the algorithms behind it? How how is it making decisions? Um, what data did it digest? So where did this content come from? What measures do you have in place to ensure that there isn't implicit bias that is being created through the use of these technologies? And is this truly AI versus some sort of rule-based engine or some sort of other, algorithmic technology that is you slapped an AI logo in front of and saying now this is an AI tool itself too. So understanding and defining what type of AI it is, understanding the algorithms behind it, understanding the data that it is digested in order to come up with its methodologies and content that it's creating. And then what is the governance process to measure the efficacy of the information that's coming out of these tools? All the questions that I would be asking my vendor partners. And I think, the red flags would come from any of those answers that just don't feel right or sit right with the organization, or if they can't explain some of the things that you're asking, that would send a red flag to me.
Yeah, and also because the thing is, I'm quite sure there's thousands of AI vendors that pop up nowadays because you can vibe code it and all that
Right,
stuff,
right.
you know?
Everybody's got AI in their product now. I mean, if you
Yeah.
don't have AI in your product these days, people aren't even. We've created this condition. I was talking to someone earlier about this. It's some the investor community in particular, and they're all saying if you're not saying you got AI in your technology, we're not even looking to invest in you.
Wow.
And so yes, yes. So every technology now has to have AIs. It's part of it's a table stake now. It's a core part of what you have to have in your technology engine to even get investors to seriously take a look at you now. But I'm not all that convinced that everything has to be AI driven still today.
Mhm.
But that's just how much we've overinflated, I think, the use of technology and specifically AI, and that everyone feels obligated now that they've got to put an AI logo on their platform in order to say you're, an innovative piece of technology today.
Yeah, even hardware. I mean,
Hmm.
like, you go to buy a laptop and it's like, "Oh, it's AI enabled. You can get
Yes.
Copilot directly onto your laptop." Like you
Right.
have a button that will get you directly to, the
Hmm.
Copilot.
That's
Like, my
correct.
my laptop is like that, and I'm like, "I don't use
Yes.
Copilot. It's a useless button for me." So, like,
Yeah, I mean,
"Should I change it?"
exactly. And it's a great tool. I use it occasionally, but I have other tools I use as well. I'd be the first to say I do use AI.
Mhm.
And it has been a real bit a great benefit for me. But I'm also very conscious about making sure that anytime I use AI, for specifically for things like research and I'm including it as a part of a narrative I'm creating for a white paper or a document or something I'm sharing with a customer, that I've done my own due diligence to make sure that information that it is creating is accurate and complete as
Mhm.
well. Now, I've used AI, say, hey, take this email and make it sound better. And that's easy, and I do
Right.
that quite often. Unfortunately, I've gotten comfortable with doing that. And I don't necessarily go back and back check it with what I originally wrote. However, when it comes to again, research and information I want to be sharing with customers and clients and sharing with a broader community, I am very conscious about my validation process when it
Hmm.
comes to what it's generating.
Yeah. The human in the loop,
Hmm.
I like to call it.
Absolutely. And I
'Cause-
think that's the piece that is really important too, is AI is still a tool. It's not something that we should, at least at this point in AI's evolution, that we should just defer and say it's going to be the de facto source of truth. And I should just trust it blindly.
Mhm.
We do have to have the human in the middle to go through some sort of validation and quality check process as well to make sure it isn't, creating erroneous information. And I was listening to someone a couple days ago, and they were talking about how AI it has exceeded the consumption of human data now. And
Ooh.
so now what AI is doing is consuming its own data. And as you know, there's hallucinations and other nuances associated with AI generated data. So now AI is generating content based on AI generated data. And that in and of itself can start to blur the images of what's really accurate
Mhm.
versus what was actually human validated content.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like Inception.
Yes. Yes,
I could just
exactly.
imagine the movie for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just think about all those, if you've ever played around with AI and you created images or whatever, and the person's got six fingers or two, three eyes or whatever, it doesn't, this distorts the creation of the image. It's using that data now also to create other images.
Mhm.
Or if the data that you asked it wasn't quite accurate, it's still using that data as a part of its digestion. If you're not appropriately curating that data, it's still going out to the broader internet, and leveraging whatever it finds to generate insights for you.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very conscious about what data your AI technologies are gaining access to, because you want to make sure that that data has a high level of quality and efficacy, and uh, um, ability to monitor the value, again, the accuracy of that information that it's using when it's creating content for you.
Yeah, because we usually take the data, we copy the data, and then
Mhm.
we can go and edit it somewhere else,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And
Right.
then say, okay, well, the one that's edited on the Word document is the correct one and not the
That's
one
good.
in Gemini, is what
That's
I,
good. Right.
right?
Right.
So it's not
Mhm.
like
I
at the
cleaned it up
bottom.
and put it back and gave it back to Gemini and say, "This is the correct data. Update your data source to reflect that." We don't do that, to your point. We go, in many cases, clean it up outside of the AI model, and then we leverage that as our final source of truth, and AI has never been,
Corrected, right?
corrected. That's
Mhm.
correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
no button that says, "Okay, this is valid."
That's right. This is the valid information.
Right.
I'm gonna let you redigest and delete what you had originally created,
Mhm.
and don't use
Yeah.
that.
So that's
Yeah.
something that we should tell other people, "Hey, hey, vendors,
Right.
put a check mark,"
That's
right?
right. How
Put
are
a
you going back and validating that the
Mhm.
data it's generating is accurate? And if you've had to modify it, are you going back in and having it learn from the correct data and deleting the incorrect information from its access?
So much to do.
Yes. That's like I said, we're flying the plane and building it at the same time with the
Yeah.
hopes that the plane will stay airborne while we're building it.
Yeah, let's not crash.
Yes, exactly.
Alright, so HIPAA was written in 1996.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
The AI Act is emerging in Europe.
Hmm.
The FDA is trying to regulate AI as a medical device.
Hmm.
From where you sit, is there a regulatory environment providing meaningful patient data protection, or are we essentially operating on the honor system right now?
Yeah, I think like most technologies we've experienced, whether it's initially the internet, and now AI, I don't think our regulatory bodies have ever done a very good job in keeping up with the technologies and framing governance, and compliance related legislation that effectively helps us ensure the efficacy of that information, and holding individuals accountable for if that information does harm. And I still think and AI is a great example of that right now. I think there are some states that are trying to do that, and then you most recently saw the president most recently was about to sign an order related to AI, and then he delayed it as well too. So there's still a lot of challenges, I think, with our legislators, and most of them. And I've had the chance to do some advocacy work at the state capitol, and in talking to our state legislators, most of them don't really understand what AI really is and what it isn't.
Mhm.
And in many cases, not to be gender age bias, but a lot of the older legislators aren't even trying to figure it out, or they have created this their own definition in their mind around AI, and in many cases, it's not a positive one as well too. Or they're saying, "Well, it's not going to affect me because I'm not going to worry about it." But yet,
Yeah.
you're asking them to develop legislation that's going to somehow govern how AI is being used. And again, many of them don't even understand what it is and what its implication might be in industries like healthcare. So I don't think that there's been a very good job by our state and federal legislators to get their arms effectively around the governance of AI. And yes, I do think that we're still operating to some degree like the gold rush or the wild, wild west. We're just out there trying to leverage it the best we can, trying to self regulate, or in some cases, no regulation, and trying to let the markets dictate how AI will be used. And I think there's some value in some of that because it helps to spur innovation. But also, I think, there will be those models that, if not kept in check, will cause more harm than good.
Yeah. And also, when you provide a technology that is like out there, right?
Hmm.
But then come back with a regulation that restrict that technology, you're
Right.
taking back the technology. We're like, "Nope, you can't use it no more." Right?
Yeah.
So people, they
Yeah.
will go in uproar, but like, "No."
Exactly. Yeah. And you bring up a very good point. Now, so now that the technology is out, the Pandora's box is open and people are starting to apply it and creating tools and technologies that are becoming a part of mainstream business. It's hard to go back and say, now reel it back in when it's now a part of how you do business on a day-to-day basis. And you see that happening in some cases too, when our legislators finally figure out, okay, we need to do something about X, Y, or Z. And so now we're going to put this very um, generic or myopic rule in place that now affects so many other parts of the AI or technology innovation ecosystem without forethought behind that. It does create chaos sometimes within industries.
Yeah. And also HIPAA, I guess version 2, has come out recently, or the talks about it has come out recently. What's your thought about that?
Well, I am. I'd be the first to admit that I haven't delved in great detail around the new rules, the updated rules. So I have to um, really go back and take a closer look at it as well too.
So then
Uh,
I'm saying that we're gonna have a part 2, a
yeah,
podcast part 2.
I'm excited to see. Yeah, I would say this. I'm excited to see there's an attempt to bring it to the more modern use of HIPAA, and how technology is being used today within the healthcare arena. I will not be able to quote chapter and verse of the different parts of the rules that might have been updated and changed up to this point. But I would hope that it is taking into account at the end of the day ongoing protection of patient information
Mhm.
and giving and empowering the patient to have control of their own data at the end of the day, because these records are the patient's records. They're not a hospital's records. They're not some third party's records. The patient should ultimately be held or should have the responsibility of deciding who gets access to my data. Even in the age of AI, especially in the age of AI, where it's going out there and generically taking information and creating content based in some cases on information it has about you as
Yeah.
well too. So I'm going to have to spend a little more time delving into the updated parts of the reg, and then maybe I can come back on later and give you a more intelligent response.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Um, so most of the conversations around AI and data protection focuses on external threats, hackers, breaches, model vulnerabilities. But what about the clinicians who query an AI tool with more patient context than necessary? Or the analyst who uses a generative AI platform to draft a report that, you know, just exposes the
Mhm.
PHI? How do organizations govern AI use from the inside out?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question as well too. I think to your point, most organizations are looking at the external threats associated with cybersecurity and breaches and the impact of third parties may have on access to patient data, but we never think about, well, never. What we should also make sure we're doing just as much diligence on how we're using that information internally. To your point, third party individual staff members who are going out and using uncurated AI models to develop content that's going to be used internally in the organization is something that they have to develop policies and procedures to hold the staff accountable. At the end of the day, certain data should not be leveraged from external sources without proper validation. And we need to make sure that everyone in an organization has a level of knowledge and proficiency on what AI isn't, what AI is, how they should be using AI, and what tools are accessible to them that are validated by the organization they can use and which ones are not. One of the questions I often ask, healthcare leaders when they're talking about their AI journey, I'm asking them about AI literacy amongst their staff.
Mhm.
And the question really is, has everyone in your organization received some level of AI literacy training so that they know what AI again is, what it isn't, and how the organization today is using it and what their responsibilities are in using AI to generate content that's related that they're going to use in the organization's operations to some degree. And most organizations haven't developed an effective literacy program for the entire staff. And when I say entire staff, I'm not talking just about the folks in the executive suite and the directors and the clinicians. I'm also talking about the person at the receptionist desk. I'm talking about the person in the cafeteria. I'm talking about the maintenance, professionals there. Now, anyone that is operating to help, responsible for helping to run the operations of the organization should have gotten some sort of exposure and education around what AI is and what AI isn't and how the organization plans to leverage AI in its day-to-day operations. And so that they are more, knowledgeable about the different nuances associated with it. Because again, many people will just go out and use the general AI tools and expect because it presented a pretty thorough, effective response, and the AI's gotten really good about that. It sounds legitimate, it even sometimes quotes low, sources of information. But have you is that valid information? Is that a valid source that the organization approves? Is it, should we be using that, those sources when we're curating insights for our organization as well? All those things have to be built into some sort of literacy program for staff across the organization. So, because I do think that no matter what role you're in an organization, AI can be an effective tool to help you do your job better, but you got to know what the guardrails are in this use.
Yeah. So it should be like the cybersecurity awareness training.
Mhm.
Like even yeah, I know they
Yeah,
give
there should be
them
an
they give
AI component or
yeah,
even a whole separate AI training like cybersecurity and HIPAA, which is a requirement. There should be another module called AI usage,
yeah,
AI education and AI usage that healthcare organizations built into its annual uh, training.
yeah. And I think with like how fast AI is going, I think it should be like quarterly at least,
Hmm.
and even cybersecurity,
Hmm.
that's my spiel. That it should be at least
Right,
quarterly
right,
because
right.
how
Exactly.
fast it goes,
Yes.
the different scams that's going,
Hmm.
even if it's not AI like technology related. I just saw one today where they're scamming at the gas station.
Yeah.
So they're putting a screw in, inside the lever, right?
Hmm.
So where you put the pump thingy in,
Hmm.
they're putting a screw there so that it doesn't um,
Fully shut off.
fully shut off. So it
Hmm.
continues running your credit card,
Right.
right? So I'm like, this is crazy.
Yes.
Like you wouldn't think about it. You just like go pump the gas and like, okay, whatever.
That's
But
right.
somebody telling you, oh, be aware of this, right? So
That's
then
right.
you're like, okay, now I'm aware. And as like also as a female, being aware of where you go, physical security, you
Right.
know, looking at your handle for your car.
Hmm.
If there's something weird on it, don't touch it,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
those kind of things, like, you
Yes.
gotta think about, right? So, it's like physical security,
Hmm.
being aware of things. It I believe at least quarterly to have a security training, a AI awareness training,
Hmm.
HIPAA, also like a reminder for the HIPAA compliance and all those things.
Right, right. And we
Quarterly, I
should.
think it should be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should have a disclosure, any of that communication that we're generating through AI to say that parts of this content was generated through the use of an AI platform so that
Mhm,
people know that, this was not all based on your own personal research, your own personal insights, that some of this content was actually generated through a third party resource that, you need to be aware of so that you can apply your own level of skeptibility around the quality of the information that you're getting as well too. So if I knew that this content was created through the use of some AI tool, then I may want to go out and do my own validation to
mhm,
make sure that what this content is providing is accurate and complete.
yeah. So the organizations with the greatest responsibility to protect vulnerable patient population, community hospitals, rural health systems often have the fewest resources to manage AI governance and data security. So
Mhm.
how do we ensure that AI driven data protection doesn't become another area where the resource gap creates a care equity gap?
Yeah, I think great questions. I think that, like many organizations, rural health organizations, FQHCs, and others, are challenged in many cases in being able to invest in resources, whether that's staff or technology, to you know protect patient information, cybersecurity, and other requirements that they may have. Um, and so many of those organizations need to rely on potential partners as well too, for those who can't afford to build it internally. What's exciting again about this industry is there's so many services you can buy. You can buy infrastructure as a service. You can buy security as a service. You can buy CISOs as a service. You can buy interim or fractional resources, that if you can't afford the full-time resources as well too. So I think my company does a lot of that IOTech consulting, where we provide a lot of fractional resources, and we can provide um, um, technology and infrastructure as a service. We can provide security as a service. And so I think there are opportunities where you can commoditize these technologies,
Mhm.
gaps that you may have by going to partners who have already built the economies of scale in their technologies because they're servicing a wide variety of clients and can offer you a high quality set of solutions, services, resources at a competitive price point as well too, if you can't afford to develop it or build it in-house.
Yeah. Now, patients are the owners of their own health data, at
Uh-huh.
least philosophically. But in practice, they have almost no visibility into
Hmm.
how their data is being used to
Hmm.
train, validate, or deploy AI systems. What would it look like to genuinely put patients in control of their data in an AI powered healthcare environment? And is anyone actually doing that well?
Yeah, here's where I think those where our legislators can have probably the biggest impact in terms of how AI is regulated, and that is developing further legislation that empowers the patient to have control of their information or information that's being generated through the use of artificial intelligence. I don't think that we've done a very good job across the board in creating laws that continue to hold organizations accountable for getting the permission of patients to leverage their data in some form or fashion. And I think that we have to do a better job at that. When it comes to governance as well too internally in the organization, there's two things I always ask, when you're implementing a technology, and that is, have you asked the clinicians and those individuals who are ultimately going to use the technology, what do they think and what do they want out of the use of that technology? And have you asked the patients themselves, what's the impact on them as well too? And I think a part of any governance structure, you need to have a patient advisory board, you need to have obviously a clinician advisory board so that you have representation in the governance process from those lenses as well too. And you might find that some of the things we are attempting to implement may may not be desirable for the patient and or the end user who ultimately will be who will be using the technology. So those are just a couple things that come to mind in terms of how we start to get our arms around it. And then obviously legislation that we need to continue to enact that strengthens the patient's um, um, ownership of that information and strengthens the accountability for health systems and organizations to get the appropriate permission to use patient data in the development of these models.
Okay. Now, if a health system CISO or a CMO and a patient advocate were all sitting together in a room trying to build an AI data governance framework from
Mhm.
scratch, what are the three non negotiable principles they would need to agree on before writing a single policy?
Okay. I think the first one is, what's the purpose of the use of the technology? I think we have to, we have to ask ourselves, are we implementing AI for AI's sake? Or are we actually implementing AI because we believe it will deliver a better outcome for a specific part of our business, whether it's clinical care, whether it's, improved operational efficiencies or some other, or patient engagement? Is the technology in and of itself going to deliver a higher level of care or a high level of service than if an individual themselves were responsible for it as well? And so I think that first and foremost is something we need to take a look at.
Okay.
Um, Two, the question is, is the patient in the process as well too? And where does that patient lie? Are they helping to define what the requirements are associated with it? And what's going to be, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable to that? I think the the third thing around this is from what I call a health equity perspective, and that is, are we measuring the how the technology is going to impact individuals, and are we accounting for any potential biases associated with the framework that we're developing around these technologies? And then finally, I think the transparency of the technology. Are we clear in understanding how the technology is developing its insights, where it's getting its source of information, and do we have an ability to go back and audit and evaluate the quality of the content that's being generated?
Mm. Okay. So I have two more questions for you that are
Sure.
a little bit more personal side.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good.
so you are a brain tumor survivor.
Yes.
How did shifting from the role of a healthcare executive to the role of a critical patient fundamentally change how you view the technology and systems you spend your life building?
Yeah, I think it was a major game changer for me, from a couple of different perspectives. One, um, before discovering the tumor, I was having some health issues that were happening periodically that the health systems that I were seeking care from couldn't figure out what was causing them.
Mhm.
And I had gone to multiple health systems in order to try to figure out what this periodic episode was, what the root causes were, and neither could eventually figure it out until kind of my fifth MRI when they discovered a couple tumors that I had on my brain. And so I think the first thing that I came to a realization is that healthcare still has a long way to go
Mhm.
in diagnosing, conditions. I think they're good in some areas, but there's still other areas where we still have a journey to get better at diagnosing unique illnesses. And that was a bit frustrating for me as I was
Yeah, I
trying to
can
figure,
imagine.
yeah, what was going on with me. And this thing was happening literally every month at the same time of the month. I would go through this episode and no one could explain it. Um, so that was the first thing. I think the second thing was on the flip side of that, how far we have advanced in the delivery of care, especially when it comes to the treatment of things like brain tumors. Um, you know, just 10 years ago, my surgery would have been much more complicated and much more evasive than it was, 10 years, fast forward 10 years later.
Mhm.
And so, uh, the outcomes may not have been as great. So I think we've made a lot of advancements in healthcare. Over, every year we're seeing advances in healthcare happen. And with my condition and the fact that they did have to have surgery and the way the surgery was delivered was much more less evasive than it could have been, again, just a decade ago. And so that I was appreciative of that um, as well. And I think whenever I think, go through a condition like, cancer or, brain tumors, or you name your catastrophic type of condition, for me, it did shift my perspective on life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And I do have much more of an appreciation
Mhm.
for life, and not just my own life, but others as well too. And so I try to be very intentional about advocating for, and I was lucky in that I've been in the healthcare system as an executive. I know healthcare in general. I know how to navigate some of the challenges and nuances with healthcare. But everyone doesn't know that. Everyone doesn't come from a system. Everyone can't make a phone call to someone who can get things moving faster.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm here to try to advocate for those people who don't have that, because I know in my own family why I saw health, my even people as close to me as my mom, not receive what I believe was a high quality of healthcare, and ultimately it led to cancer uh, not being diagnosed earlier enough, and she ultimately lost her battle with it. Um, and so I'm very passionate about advocating for the underserved communities that don't get quality care. And again, those inherent biases that still exist
Mm.
in our delivery of care as well. And so I try to do what I can to lend a voice and shine a light on those gaps that still exist in healthcare, especially when it comes to health equity.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think finally, I applaud healthcare professionals, those who are part of my care team, and individuals every day that get up and go to work and find a way to continue to stay in the fight of delivering as the best quality healthcare they can, because it's a tough industry to be a part of.
Yeah.
Anyone that wakes up every day and goes in to try to help people in their worst condition, and do that every day, day in and day out, is a special human being. So I applaud, all our healthcare workers and all those folks who are in healthcare in general, for the commitment you make to the mission of healthcare, because it's a job that a lot of people who don't live it day to day can't possibly appreciate the challenges you deal with on a day to day basis.
Mhm.
And we just appreciate, and I appreciate your service. So thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So your work sits at the intersection of innovation, equity, and
Hmm.
purpose.
Hmm.
When you look back at your career and the release of Diagnosing Distrust, what is the ultimate legacy you want to leave behind for the next generation of healthcare leaders?
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned the book that I'm hoping to have released later this year. It's called Diagnosing Distrust: Why People of Color Don't Trust the U.S. Healthcare System, and how we can use what I trademarked as Tequity, or health equity, as its cure. Um, Again, what I'm hoping is that we can continue to find ways to close the gaps
Mhm.
in the delivery of health quality and equitable health care, not just here in the United States, but globally. I'm doing quite a bit of work now outside of the US as well, to start to try to address issues of access to care in places like India and Africa, and other places where we know there are billions of people who don't have access to quality health care, basic health care, and trying to find ways to close those gaps, and leveraging technology as a catalyst for that as well too, is a passion for me. Um, I do think we have to start to come together as a community worldwide to figure out how we're going to manage the care of the future, provide the care of the future. We have, unfortunately, a youth shortage that exists now in our society. Just in the United States, by 2030, just 4 years from now, there'll be more people over 60 than under 5 years of age. We
Wow.
see a massive exodus of healthcare professionals. They're aging out or leaving the healthcare profession, and we're not closing those gaps quickly or as effectively. By 2050, one fourth of the world's population will be over 65. And so we're going to have a significant number of our communities dealing with people who are aging or in
Mm.
their senior years. And as we know, unfortunately, especially here in the United States, we haven't done a very good job in taking care of ourselves. And so most of those folks are going to have one or more comorbidity issues that are going to affect their health care.
Yeah.
And so it's going to affect the cost of healthcare. It's going to affect access to healthcare. It's going to affect the family members who are going to have to find ways to be a part of the healthcare process, because they can't afford to have professionals, come in and take care of their loved ones. And we're going to have to find ways to age in place as well too. We're still a 3,000 plus shortage of long-term care facilities in the United States as well too. So we don't even have facilities where we're going to be able to put people as they age, and to be able to care for them as well. So many of those folks are going to have to age at home, most likely with family members and loved ones. And so you've got a generation of individuals, a sandwich generation, who are raising kids and taking care of their elderly parents or grandparents and trying to take care of their own health care as well too. And we've got to come together as a society to figure out how we drive costs out of healthcare, how we improve access, and how do we continue to leverage technology to fill those gaps where we don't have enough human beings available to leverage.
Yeah. So maybe utilize AI to
Hmm.
diagnose the simpler
Hmm.
uh, ailments like the
Yes.
cold, the flu,
Hmm.
the ear infection.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that would help. you know.
Yeah, and I've said, and I know people can sometimes laugh at me when I say it, but I do predict in the next 5 years or less, we will have what I call a digital doctor, and that is an AI generated platform that can provide basic primary care
Mhm.
for individuals. To your point, cold, flu, sinus infection, you know, basic ambulatory care that you would go to a ED or an urgent care facility to get access to a healthcare professional. Because now we have the advent of wearable devices and remote patient monitoring technologies and other tools that will continue to emerge. We don't always have to be physically in a clinic or an exam room in order for a doctor to treat us. I currently serve as a CTO for a company called Ask Me Your MD, and we provide virtual urgent care services that cover 29 different specialties and all 50 states, including Guam and Puerto Rico. So literally, you can go on and get on demand, not scheduled, but literally on demand healthcare right now through our platform for 35 bucks. So it's sometimes cheaper than even regular insurance
Yeah.
as well too. And so I think you're going to see more and more of that type of technology emerge because the cost of insurance is so high. Individuals can't afford it, and they may opt to just pay out of pocket um, for services like this because it's much more affordable.
Yeah. And also, like, when you have, let's say, an infection and you just need the medication, the
Yeah,
antibiotic, you
yeah,
just paying $35 to say, okay, yeah, confirmed.
yes,
You went through WebMD and, you went through the internet, you asked Gemini or
hmm,
ChatGPT, these are my
yes,
symptoms. And yeah, it looks like you have an infection. Uh, get the doctor to give you a prescription to
yeah.
antibiotics.
I personally experienced that today. Yeah, I every fall and spring, I generally will probably get a sinus infection because the weather has changed, and partly because also I think the surgery I had to remove my tumor went through my sinus cavities,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and so I'm very sensitive now to changes in weather, and now because I have them so frequently, I don't have to necessarily go into my primary care's clinic to be seen. I can literally call and say, "Hey, I got another sinus infection," and
Mhm.
he'll ask me a couple questions and validate that that's the case, and so I'll get a telehealth consult, and then I can get prescribed my antibiotics and go pick them up or have them delivered here, and by the time I tried to find some time on the schedule, by the time he was available to see me, I might have developed,
Something
some people
worse.
something worse.
Hmm.
But yet I was able to get in front of those because now when I know it's coming, I try to get in front of it early enough so it doesn't linger as long. I'm able to get quality care.
Yeah, that's good.
Again, yeah, and so I do think that we're going to see AI take more and more. We're going to trust AI more and more to be able to offer that's a level of care for those less critical illnesses that don't necessarily require human intervention.
Yeah, that's really good though,
Yeah.
because that
Hmm.
that way it'll alleviates the amount of people inside the ED and
Hmm.
or the ER, and then
Hmm.
urgent care and all that stuff, so that more serious
Yeah,
illness is taken
it
care
can
of.
be treated
Mhm.
exactly. And then
Yeah.
you don't have to sit there half the day or longer in an ED or an urgent care facility waiting for someone to tell you something you already know, and all you need is a prescription for it.
Right.
Mhm.
'Cause that has happened, and I'm like,
Yes.
"Why why am I here?" Like, I
Why am I
know.
here? I know what I need.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just
I
need a
already know.
script.
Yeah.
You know exactly.
Thank you. Right.
Yes.
Alright. So thank you, Christopher, for
You're
coming on.
welcome.
This is a great conversation.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to part 2 with
Yes.
HIPAA 2.0.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Let's have that conversation, in a couple months, and let's see where things go. I am very, and as the book comes out, I would love to come back and talk more about
Oh, yeah.
that and what spurred the reason for developing the book and this whole concept around health equity as well too, because I do think that we have to put a lens on that as we start to use these technologies more and more as well.
Absolutely. I am open to more of these kind of conversations.
Wonderful. Well, I applaud you for creating a platform where people can amplify their voices and having these very open and constructive conversations.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
thank you to the Wise crew, for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.
Sounds good. Thank you.